and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Okay. This story is going to be interesting to talk about because we're talking about Marianne Williamson and the hype surrounding her as being the next Bernie Sanders and how she's apparently taking over TikTok by storm, which, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Marianne Williamson's making a name for herself. She's running for the nomination in the Democratic Party. Same thing, too. RFK Jr. is going to be making his announcement today. However, again, I have to bring this up. You're running in the Democratic Party. Are you not prepared for the election fraud that's going to take place? Have you not been paying attention to what the establishment did to Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020? How the establishment smeared Tulsi Gabbard in the 2020 Democratic primary. I mean, again, these are things that must be brought up. But you have people like Ryan Grimm and Kyle Kulinski going to bat for Marianne Williamson. Dare I say, I think they're shimping. They're being shimps for Marianne Williamson. So you got this article here from the Intercept. Marianne Williamson, fusing Bernie Sanders and early Jordan Peterson, is taking over TikTok. Marianne mania is gripping TikTok. Okay, but the U.S. government's trying to shut that app down, right? Okay. The kids may or may not be all right. Oh, God, Ryan. Jesus Christ. You open up with that? That's your opening line? You thought this was a good idea? The kids may or may not be all right, but one thing is clear. They are super into Marianne Williamson. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Gen Z, don't do this. Please don't do this. If engagement on TikTok is any indication, oh, God, a Democratic presidential primary held today among people under 50 would result in a landslide for the best-selling author now making her second bid for the nomination. Ryan, God damn it, Ryan, look at me. What the hell are you writing here, boy? Seriously, did you not pay attention to what happened to Bernie? I mean, yeah, there was a lot of enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders. The most I've ever seen for any politician in my lifetime. And yet at every turn, the Democratic establishment did everything they could to silence and suppress him, to make sure that it was impossible for voters to go out and vote for him. So Williamson has only posted 65 videos on TikTok, yet has drawn more than 11 million views, according to a TikTok data counter. Okay. All right. Great. It's 11 million views. How many people turn out to vote? That's the key thing for today. And also, again, election fraud. How many polling stations will be shut down? Lack of paper ballots, lack of machines not working right. But there are also endless Marina Stan accounts. Marianne 2024 winner and Marianne for Prez among them that post her speeches and rack up massive numbers. A scroll through the popular account, Real Democrat 20, turns up multiple Williamson videos, all generating eye-popping numbers for her treatises on universal health care, corruption, guns rights, abortion, including nearly 1 million views for whatever this is. A recent poll found Williamson hovering above 20% with voters under 30, far higher than she reached in the crowded 2020 field, suggesting the buzz on TikTok is translating to real support, or that real support is producing the buzz on TikTok. I'm obsessed with it, said Jessica Burbank, a leftist political TikTok star who posts as Burbank of the Marianne Mania. Oh, God. All right, we're gonna stop here for a second, okay? Ryan, this is an article for simping. You're simping here too hard, buddy. God. I again, there seems to be this attempt to turn her into something that she's not. And let's say they're successful, okay? Let's just say Marianne Williamson becomes the next Bernie Sanders, or builds the same amount of hype that Bernie had in 2016, and dare I say it, in 2020. Do you know how easy it is for the Democratic establishment to pop that balloon? We saw it happen not once, but twice. It will happen a third time. So what I want to say to everyone that's hyping up Marianne Williamson is, okay, great. She's saying things you want to hear. Does she have the spirit to fight the Democratic establishment and what they're going to most likely do to her campaign? They're going to do everything they can to silence her. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that their establishment pick wins the day. Biden has yet to make his announcement yet. And let's say he doesn't choose to run. There's a whole treasure trove of other establishment Democratic candidates that the DNC establishment will prefer over somebody like Marianne Williamson. Unless she gets co-opted and, oh, hey, we saw that before. Remember a guy named Obama, Hope and Change? All that stuff about protecting a woman's right to choose. All that stuff about we're going to build a better future. All that kind of stuff. Oh, yeah, that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Never run into the Democratic Party. It's bad news. Some reasons for the support are obvious. Videos of her pledging to wipe out student debt and remove cannabis from Schedule 1 have particularly gone viral. Yeah. All these Democratic politicians say that. And you know what else they ask? Give me money. Money me now. Money. I need the money. But so have others that speak more holistically about the political system and the corruption that limits the ability of people to have their voices heard or their collective will translated into public policy. And the one that mentioned student debt and weed also includes a pledge to beef up the National Labor Relations Board, cut all government contracts with union-busting companies, and otherwise do everything she can as president to boost organized labor. Hey, didn't Joe Biden say he was like a guy for the unions? And then, oh, yeah, he told railroad workers not to strike. The notion that Williamson, in her second run at the prize, can seize the Democratic nomination seems far-fetched, as she'd probably be the longest shot in American history to claim a major party nomination. After maybe John W. Davis' surprise win at a deadlocked Democratic convention in 1924, the same poll had Joe Biden up 73% to 10% over Williamson, though her support rises to 14% in battleground states. Still, there's much to be learned about our current politics by taking seriously the phenomenon of her surging youth support. This is again, they're trying to build her into something that she's not. It's disappointing. Going on, Williamson realized something unusual was going on when friends began reaching out to say their kids were becoming her fans on the platform. All these people would text me and say, my 17-year-old loves you. My 20 or 22-year-old wants to know if she can have your email, she said. I don't wake up in the morning, look at the mirror and say, hello, TikTok star, but obviously I'm grateful that there is a platform, that there is a venue where I'm seen and the message is received. Okay, but her campaign itself in 2020 fizzled out. Dare I say, I think she lasted a little bit better than Kamala did, but because Kamala ran her campaign to the ground. But it gets interesting here when you see this kind of behavior, this need to manufacture another Bernie Sanders. Because let's face it, in 2016 and in 2020, outlets like TYT, Majority Report, Secular Talk really profited well with the Bernie Sanders industrial complex. Shout out to RBN for Revolutionary Blackout Network for coining that term, because let's face it, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, they were able to make a big name for themselves. They would have access to Bernie Sanders, and they exploded in subscribers and view count. All the while, as soon as Bernie Sanders fizzled out and cucked out and endorsed the Democratic establishment and their nominee, it was always, we got to get more people to vote Democrat because we can't have Trump. We can't have Trump. And so when you see stuff like this, history's repeating itself. So to all the young people that are excited for Marianne Williamson, that's great. All right, fine. Is she prepared to fight the DNC? My answer to that question is a no. She's not going to fight against the establishment. Look what they did to Bernie. Can she go through that? Does she have a legal team ready to call them out? No. What's probably going to happen is we all got to work together and support the nominee because we got to beat Trump. That's what all the Democrats are going to say.
We got some good news, y'all. Got some good news on the Marianne Williamson front. So we discussed this before, but the first poll that had her name in it, she was at 4%. Now, that's a very low number. Bernie Sanders, when he first launched in 2015, also started at 4%.
Okay, you see where Kyle's going with this? Trying to compare and contrast, and then also say, wait, they're almost the same. Bernie and Marianne Williamson started from the bottom, both at 4%. That's great. That's happening, right? Hold on. Listen a little bit more, because, again, this isn't a good thing. Because if they're going to start off the same, they may end the same.
Okay. So that's just to impress upon everybody that these things take time. They need to blossom, and she needs to be exposed to more people, right? So that was the first poll. Then the second poll we saw, she was at 10%. You know what Bernie's second poll was? 10%. So look, she's tracking. Having said that, I have no doubt at all that now, because this is the way politics works, right? There will be another poll that comes out very shortly, which has her like 2%. How do I know that? This is the game that's played, right? This is what the Democratic establishment does. They want to nip in the bud any sort of enthusiasm. So they want to crush people's will, crush people's spirit, make them think it's impossible. And so this is what happened to Bernie as well, right? You have one good poll, then you have one really, really bad poll. And the media would either not talk about any of them or only talk about the bad poll. That's how this works. That's how this game is played.
Yes, and the game is played of also getting fools to part with their money. Kyle, Ryan, I know there's this little buzz around Marianne Williamson being the next big thing. Okay, let's say her trajectory is exactly the same as Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016. If she can't fight the Democratic establishment and the election fraud that will take place during the Democratic primary, then I don't want to hear this hype about, oh, we got to build more enthusiasm. Oh, we got to do this. Watch our show. Subscribe. We're going to interview Marianne Williamson. Help us build up our network. Build up all this hype, and then she fizzles out and supports the establishment candidate. That's what could happen. Or worse, she gets the nominee and becomes Hillary Clinton 2.0 or another Obama in office. All those promises of cannabis legalization or student debt forgiveness, we don't have time to do that right now. That's what's going to happen. When you're in the DNC, you get corrupted by it. You're not going to change it. Simple as that. We saw this not once, but twice. And in 2020, I had the audacity to think that Bernie Sanders would have been ready for that election cycle. I was wrong. And because of that, I do call into question if Marianne Williamson will have it within her to really call out the Democratic establishment, to fight back and call out the election fraud. Because that's a brave thing to do. And asking a Democratic nominee to do the brave thing is a bridge too far.
Oh, irrelevant. Oh, not serious. Oh, not a real political player. This is how it works. I guarantee you this is how it works. Okay. So, the media is no fan of Marianne Williamson at all. So she's going to have to get support elsewhere. Well, guess what? I mentioned this briefly to you guys the other day, but now we actually have a good article written about it. Marianne Williamson is taking over TikTok. She's become
a simp is going to simp for a simp who likes to simp. Simple as that. Again, you saw me with this article earlier. And again, Ryan, that first sentence, the kids may or may not be all right, but one thing is clear. They are super into Marianne Williamson. God, what were you trying to be clever with that, Ryan?
Become the queen of TikTok. So the younger generation, they have their candidate, and their candidate is Marianne Williamson. So I have some anecdotal experience with this. Crystal's oldest daughter came to me and
Don't bring in family here, Kyle. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, Kyle?
Crystal, and was like, you have no idea. Like, I'm not even political on TikTok, and I see her stuff all the time. Like, it is TikTok is packed full of pro Marianne Williamson videos. It's like younger people.
Yeah, TikTok's filled with a lot of things. In fact, TikTok makes me question the continuation of the human species. Have you seen the big brain geniuses on TikTok? Or what people post on that platform? And plus, by the way, the United States government's trying to get rid of TikTok. So what does that tell you? Chinese government has all it needs to know about the American people. Not bright, not smart.
People who are like defending her vociferously and supporting her vociferously. And Crystal heard that and she was like, that's cool, right? But, you know, you don't really understand. Well, one day Crystal decided I'm going to do a deep dive on this myself. And she found out, holy shit, Marianne is really taking over TikTok. Okay. So Ryan Grimm writes this in The Intercept. Marianne Williamson, fusing Bernie Sanders and early Jordan Peterson, is taking over TikTok. Marianne Mania is gripping TikTok. So before we continue, let me touch on that point real quick. I actually think that's a really interesting.
I also want to acknowledge something here too, because I'm checking out the live stream chat. All right, because again, it's really pathetic listening to a simp for a simp about an article about some politician, how Marianne Williamson is, ruling over TikTok. I want to shout out to our live stream audience, but God damn it, there's a thing called an algorithm, Kyle. Thank you to my viewing audience for bringing it up. Algorithm, the key word. Starts with an A, algorithm. And maybe, I don't know, she would find a way to reach you or people close to you in regards to politics. But building this hype up into Marianne Williamson becoming the next Bernie Sanders, there's a lot of ways this can go, and it's going to end up in epic failure. All this to, I don't know what, recapture the enthusiasm of what we saw in 2016? Good luck.
Description from Ryan Grimm, because I think it's true, right? Like Marianne Williamson is like part Bernie because the agenda is very similar, but also there's something she has that Bernie didn't have. Bernie's like the very, blunt, straightforward, no BS, like universal healthcare, Medicare for all, higher minimum wage. The country's.
Kyle, look. I don't know. Maybe you're trying to be nice, but don't forget that's the same Bernie Sanders who on your own show told you or told the team that he didn't want you there and that you were and that only Crystal can interview him. Only Crystal could do that. Everyone remember that? I do, and so does Petridge Farm too.
Corrupt. Let's fix it. Like just very boom, 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 boom. Right, and I relate to that. I feel like I'm more, like that than I am anything else. But Marianne Williamson does have that thing where her background makes her more spiritual. And so she can connect with people on a level that I just can and Bernie can't, right? It's just not the same vibe. And that's sort of what Jordan Peterson had too. Now, maybe spiritual is the wrong word or it's slightly off. It's not exactly correct. But I think you guys get the gist of what I'm saying. It's early Jordan Peterson gave young men who desperately needed it some guidance and a framework. And
so great, Marianne Williamson. She's half Bernie Sanders, half Jordan Peterson. What a horrifying combination. It's almost something from a David Cronenberg film.
The will to want to improve, right? It was all about the, clean your room, get your act together, act in the world like what you do really matters because it does. He leaned more on the psychological themes and not almost at that time, almost not at all political. He became more and more political as time went by, but early psychology version of Jordan Peterson, self-help version of Jordan Peterson really tapped into something which became a phenomenon with all these young men who were like, yes, this is what I needed. It's almost like he was the internet's dad. The young lost men on the internet, I don't say that derisively, he was their dad.
Kyle, you're saying some kind words about Jordan Peterson. You might get canceled there, buddy. Be careful there, Kyle.
And for a while, he had a positive impact on those people until he became super political. Marianne Williamson, the internet's mom.
What a horrible, horrible image. And no, I don't want to look at a politician as a parent or somebody that I need to get approval from. Okay. No. I need a politician to stop being corrupt. I know a politician not being corrupt. Geez, well, what does that look like? We need leaders to help get us out of this economic crisis. All right. And I've seen so many times in which politicians constantly screw over their constituents, their people. So look, I understand why right now the remnants of the Bernie Sanders industrial complex want to get somebody else to, I don't know, recapture the passion that Bernie Sanders created in 2016 and 2020. But see, the thing is, Bernie Sanders had lightning in a bottle and he let it loose. He could have done something more. He could have stood up to the establishment. He could have ran for a third party. He really could have made an impact and show us what courage and bravery is all about, especially in the face of unchecked neoliberal corruption. Now, I'm not going to vote Democrat, and I sure as hell won't vote Republican because both parties are the same as far as I'm concerned. But this is my third time seeing somebody getting hyped up as a person that will challenge the establishment system. The Democratic Party rigs their primaries. They commit election fraud. The Democratic Party will go after candidates and smear them relentlessly, smear them and just try and destroy their character. We saw it in 2020, case in point, not only to Bernie Sanders, but to Tulsi Gabbard, and to, yes, an extent, Andrew Yang, and even Marianne Williamson's campaign in 2020 as well. So my question is, was all this hype, Kyle, Ryan, and anyone else that's trying to prop up Marianne as being, well, everybody's mom, or I guess the next Bernie, is how are you going to deal with the election fraud? What are you going to do to really challenge the system? Will Marianne Williamson support the Democratic establishment nominee? Or if she does build a movement, will she then throw away her movement like Bernie Sanders did? Because that's a thing that happened. That's a thing that took place. And the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, again, shout out to Revolutionary Blackout Network for coining that term. And again, it's this is a way, I think, for them to still remain relevant. All these platforms that really profited and grew because of Bernie Sanders want to continue that enthusiasm, that momentum, because it helps them with their channel. The whole idea of independent media isn't to build up false hope and say, hey, this is the politician that's going to save our lives, or this is the politician that's going to go further than this person that we really wanted to win. The whole idea is to be critical of these leaders. And last I checked, all politicians deserve to be criticized. All politicians deserve to be viewed with skepticism, because this is America after all. And let's face it, a lot of our elected leaders fail us time and time again. But this is just another attempt in which you build up a candidate and people give away their money. And false hope is built up again, thinking that the establishment can be beaten, especially if you run within said system. Just a side note, all right, in comparison, both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party and how they run their primaries. Democrats have superdelegates. The Republicans don't. So in regards to that, the superdelegates will be the ones in the Democratic primary that will have the final say, not the voters. Superdelegates will be the ones to dictate who will be the nominee. Superdelegates will be the ones in the Democratic primary to uphold the system that they profit and live off so well. Controversial statement in 3, 2, 1. Because of that, because there are superdelegates in the Democratic primary, that means in the Republican primary, their nominee is more democratically elected than what we see in the quote-unquote free speech, democracy, progressive values Democratic Party. Does Marianne Williamson have a chance in that system? Well, who knows? All depends on voter turnout. But after what they did to Bernie in both primaries of 2016 and 2020, my answer is a no. Or is it that she does build momentum and then forgets all of her promises like all politicians do? It's madness and stupidity. Don't put these politicians on a pedestal because they are not perfect. They're humans just like us. And you know what? I think a lot of people forgot the lessons that we saw in 2016 and 2020. And that's pretty sad.